What's going on, guys? Teen Mechanic here, and I'm gonna start off by saying if you're not interested in seeing any more of the LTD, click off of the video. Reason I say that is because, I don't think there's enough tours of these things out on the internet. Every time I'm missing it or whatever, and I just want to see one, I can't find one. There's none. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 on the internet that are of this generation. There are a couple of 70s, 60s and 70s LTDs as well. But I figured I'd bring another one to the internet. In this case, it's 1982, but they were the same from, I believe, 79 to 87, I think. About 8 years that they were the same. Same looking anyway. They received very minor improvements. Now, this here is my 1982 Ford Ltd. Now, if you have missed anything on this channel, I encourage you to go watch it because I did a lot to this car. I put a lot of money and a lot of time into it. Now, this one here is not a Crown Victoria, which is far more boring to most people. This is a bare bones LTD. Now, it's bare bones with the exception of the 351 Windsor under the hood and the tow package. Aside from that, I think that's it. Now, if you look at this car, you'll notice that it doesn't look all that great. It looks kind of beaten up, maybe a little worse for the wear. Until you look a little bit closer and at different aspects. Ain't that the case with most things? But anyway, in this case, this thing here has no rust on it. Now, if you live in a northern state or northern climate of any kind, you'll know this thing, these things, the Panther platforms, they rotted out. Not the body's not as much. I don't want to say not so much because they did, but the frames. Now, if you really don't know these cars, these are, let me tell you, they're body on frame. So that basically means that they had a ladder frame like trucks with 2 frame rails with an engine sitting on the top and really nothing else. And then they plop the body of something onto it, in this case, the car. Now, this is a Panther platform car, which, if you don't know your Fords, is, I believe it was 77 that they came out with it, or something, 77. That's my gut feeling, and that was Ford's answer to GM's downsizing, basically, in a nutshell. Yes, there's more to it, but that was the answer. And it was only actually supposed to be, the Panther platform was only supposed to be around for a couple of years, but this was one of the longest running platforms in Ford history. I think the longest. Maybe even one of the longest in automotive history, maybe with the exception of, I don't know, the Civic or something, but still, the Panther platform isn't a Civic, because the Civic doesn't share anything with other cars. The Panther platform was any full-size Ford from 1979 to, I believe, 2011. So that's the Lincoln Town Car, the Lincoln, I forget which mark it was. Lincoln went with their mark whatevers, and honestly, I'm not incredibly well enlightened surrounding the whole mark X, Y, and Z, but it was their Continentals, their town cars, the Mercury Grand Marquis, the Ford LTDs, Ford Crown Victorias, Ford Ltd Crown Victorias, etc. And in this case, this is an LTD. So, body on frame, they're enclosed box frames, so water had a lot of trouble getting out of there, and especially when in places where they salt the road, like where I am, you have a lot of trouble with frame rot. Now, my point is, if you look at this car, yes, it's got some braille driving marks. You can see this was used as a storage shelf for a long time, and like that is probably a backing out of a garage scrape, as are the ones in the front. And the paint that's all chipping is mostly because it was used as a storage shelf. But there are no dents, there's no rust, which is fantastic. And also, check out this vinyl. Here, let me go to the other side. Look at this vinyl. It is, I don't know, it's impeccable. It's exemplary. Whatever words you have to describe amazing perfection, that's what this is. This vinyl is perfect. In fact, there's only one place that has any sort of nick, and that is right here. Now that is the only spot where the vinyl is suffering at all. Now, most people make videos like this saying, hey, this is for sale, it's a mint example, come get it. No, this one's not for sale anymore, folks. This one here, I've decided to keep for the time being. Anyway, against not only my better judgment, but also most people's better judgment, so they say, like, oh, yeah, you shouldn't keep that thing, you should dump that off as fast as you can. It's kind of, you know, said in a lighthearted kind of manner. But, quite frankly, this car is not going to break. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry for the cut there. You're going to have to forgive me. There are helicopters and planes all over the place, and I have no idea why. You can hear them in the background. I don't know why they're hovering around, but they are. So anyway, I think I've done 4 minutes of talking is enough, I think. In this case, you can tell it's an 82 because it says automatic overdrive, and you know, the 82s were the only year that had that badge right down on either fender. Now, I believe they had the same badge, but back here, maybe it was under the Ford logo or on this side, that they had the automatic overdrive. I think it was on 83s. And in 79, instead of saying LTD here, like they had a Landau edition where they would have a chrome band that would, not chrome band that would go, well, stainless steel band that would go around the roof, but they had a stainless steel sort of rectangle that would come around the side of this thing. And they had that in 1979, and I'm not sure if they did it in 80 and 81. I know in 82 they did away with that, and they did the chrome band around the roof. I think they might have even done that since 79. I gotta admit, I absolutely have to brush up on my LTD knowledge, because I'm forgetting which years they did certain things. It's just managed to slip my mind, and that's kind of unfortunate because I love these cars. Now, for any of you that may be new to the channel, I'm 15 years old. I've had 6 of these, not 6 of this generation of the square bodies, but I've had 6 Crown Vics. I think 5 of them have actually been Aerogens, and this is the only one that's been a square body. And I gotta say, I love them, or else I wouldn't have owned 6, especially at the age that I'm at. You know, like most people, they say, oh, you know, I've even sold them to guys that have said, yeah, I've had one before and looking for another one, best car I ever had. You know, and they've had 1 or maybe 2 in the past. I think I've got a pretty good head start. Anyway, enough talking. Let's get on to the interior. Now, this is really kind of a no-frills type of deal here. The Crown Victoria had a really nice armrest with the stainless steel window switch. Actually, I'm going to say the stainless steel thing was sort of a trend of the Crown Victorias, because it actually goes back into, I think it was not 52 or 55 or something, where they had the Crown Vics that had they were chrome bands around the roof of the car, and that was where the name Crown Victoria comes from. But these, I mean, I don't know, Ford seemed to like their stainless steel back in the day. And it gave it a more modern look back then. And keep in mind, I'm 15, I wasn't around back then, but I can imagine, as opposed to chrome. I remember, like, the Aerogen, and I don't want to go too far off here for a second, but I do want to mention, you know, like, and yes, I wasn't around back then, but when the Aerogen came out in 92, and they had the smoothed over front fascia, with no grille in between the headlights, and then 93 they changed that. You know, those things looked pretty darn sporty for their time, you know, and keep in mind that they were Crown Vics, but they were way sportier than the past. Like, imagine, not it wasn't this, you know, because they did change the design significantly in 1988, but imagine going from something close to this, where it's, you know, those headlights could be exchanged with a Chevy K1500, whatever, and, you know, it's square body. And then you go to this Ford Taurus-y thin headlight, Taurus show type. Have you driven a Ford lately? Crown Victoria. That was pretty darn sporty and way the hell ahead of its time for its era. So that you know, like they started trying to kind of appeal to a younger consumer group for a very short time, and then they kind of came to terms with the fact that, hey, you know what, these cars are for older, loyal Ford folks, and they did. That's what they did. So anyway, we'll climb in here, and I'll show you the inside. Now, just taking a look at this door panel, I mean, you can see it's got some nice faux wood, and the manual mirror controls with a broken mirror housing. But aside from that, here's more stainless steel. They had that actually even on the Crown Victorias. Now, like, crank windows. This is a door card. This is not a door panel. There's no sort of contouring and like this armrest. You pop this thing up, you undo some screws, this whole thing comes off, and then it's literally cardboard. It's a door card. It really is. And same thing on the back doors. Nothing crazy. Absolutely no frills. Now, of course, being an Alberta car, of course, it's got a cracked windshield. That's just how it goes. But, you know, and like this was before the time of keyless entry. You've got your square key for the ignition, your round key for the doors. I won't fire it up for you just yet. If you want to skip to the part where I do fire it up, skip to this point in the video. But if you want to watch the other, well, not much that there is to see in this car, stick around. Now you'll see steering wheel. Ford have their cruise steering wheels, where I mean, these buttons are absolutely just, I mean, someone tried to epoxy them back in. You know, I've also seen a lot of LTD tours, the ones I have seen, where, you know, they are in bad shape. They've got 190, 200,000, well, usually miles on them. And, you know, and of course I'm Canadian, so it's only kilometers, but, you know, they've got approaching 200,000 miles, and they're rough. Like they've got crap all over the seats, and I don't mean stains, I mean like blankets and sewn in patches. It looks awful. They've got aftermarket radios galore. They've got just holes in the dash. It looks terrible. And mind you, yeah, there are holes in this dash, and that's the only hole, because they're known to fall apart even without having seen the sun. But anyway, like, you know, it's just, they weren't built all that well. Like, they really weren't. These dashes were built like crap. They weren't, you know, they were built well. They just weren't built prettily. They weren't built like, hey, this is your ultimate luxury machine. That's awfully close to ultimate driving machine. But anyway, you know, it was 1992 when it was kind of like, yeah, okay, this is starting to, you know, this is they're picking up their game. And the Crown Victorias, in 1983, they did away with the LTDs of this generation, and they brought in something that looks like this. Absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. But you'll see, I mean, like, then anything that looked like this, they looked like this, actually. And they were the LTD Crown Victorias. And they kept the LTD name, but they were only accompanied by the Crown Victoria trim level. There was no other option. So, very straightforward gauge cluster. You've got your idiot lights, as the idiots say. You've got your check engine light, your brake light, amperage, and your seatbelts light. You've also got this light, which seems to come on all the frickin' time. Very simple speedometer. You've got this kind of like this sweeper needle, which I love. I've got that in my 73 Cadillac as well. In fact, in that thing, the gauge cluster sort of is concave, so it wraps, well, not concaved, but, you know, it wraps around you, and it's a beautiful, I don't know what it is about these sweeper gauges, but I love them. I don't know why. And great design on Ford's part, where they decided to cover up the mileage. No, this thing does not have 43,862,000 kilometers. If it did, that would be fantastic. If you missed videos on this channel about this car, go watch them, because I thought it did have 43, and I found out the hard way that it didn't. Anyway, I am running out of time here. I'm already at 12 minutes, so let's go ahead. I'm going to show you the engine. Then I'll fire it up, and then I will show you the engine while it's running. So, you take a look in here. This here is the beautiful 351 V8. Now, this block was pretty close to identical with the 302 and the 289. I don't want to say identical. I'm gonna upset a lot of Ford people, and quite frankly, I'm a Ford guy myself. But I mean, these, you know, these blocks are. They're pretty much damn well the same. Quite frankly, they are. Now you'll see this battery is on the wrong side, but I don't care. Just ignore that for now. This AC compressor is unplugged, and there's no belt on the AC. That tensioner, or the smog pump down there, that's the accessory belt, and the AC compressor has no lubricant in it. I didn't want it to seize up. This engine has been out of this car. How do I know that? Because I took it out of this car. Now, I actually have videos, again, on my channel of me having the engine. I had it pulled out. I had it put in. I didn't have all all of that on video. Admittedly, I wish I did, but you still get to see all of the stuff I did to it. To summarize, I mean, I put a new camshaft in it, and it's not cammed, it doesn't have a MagnaFlow exhaust, it's got a stock true dual exhaust on it from the factory with no cats. And it's got a towing camshaft, which improves torque about this much, and it doesn't sound any different. It really doesn't. I mean, it's still, just sounds like it's a running car. Now, I must say, for a stock exhaust, the exhaust note is pretty good. Now, I'm not one of those teenagers that's gonna go cut the mufflers off of this thing, because I'm not an idiot, and I gotta say, I sure hate that sound. And at least it's a V8, but now's the rant segment of the video, and I'll say that the people my age that really want to advertise their 4-cylinders, they've got Accords and Corollas and nonsense mobiles, and they cut the damn mufflers off and they put on fart cans. I don't understand that, man. I don't understand how you enjoy that sound. The only way you can enjoy the sound of a car is if it's got enough cylinders. And quite frankly, I don't think one of these that's cut in half is enough. Anyway, that's my rant. Anyway, I mean, you can probably see where my taste in this car comes from. Some have told me that I've got an old soul, and I absolutely think that's the case. Anyway, oh man. Anyway, long story short, this here's the 351. Stock distributor, new alternator, stock intake, valve covers, heads, everything. Like, I left the head stock. I replaced the head gaskets. Stock valve springs, everything like that. The only thing that isn't stock, the camshaft, the bearings are even stock. Lifters, push rods, rocker arms are stock, and everything like that. Like, it's a very stock motor, with the exception of all the freaking gaskets I had to put into it. But it does have an aftermarket carburetor. Well, it's a Motorcraft carburetor, but it was manufactured by Autoline, and it's a motor. I don't even know what Motorcraft it is, but it's not really sufficient for this motor, as far as I'm concerned. This is a 2-barrel, which is kind of stupid for a big V8. But anyway, let's go ahead and fire this thing up. I think I've been talking, 15 minutes of nonsense is enough. So we'll go ahead and roll down this window, and of course they all shudder and shake as you roll down. I don't know why. It's just a thing of these old crank windows. And you can see, and keep in mind, I pulled this motor out by myself, did all the work by myself, and I had someone help me put it in, of course, because I needed some help putting the motor in, but that's fine. I did all this myself, and I must say, this is now, I think it's fair to say I'm speaking with a little braggadocio here when I say, I think it's kind of cool that I got this thing to work with no check engine light. I mean, that's kind of cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and fire it up. That was a little rough. It needs some gas when you first fire up. And speaking of gas and firing it up, you got to pump the gas in this thing a lot to get it to fire up, especially when it's cold. But anyway, you take a look at this thing when it's running, and it's smooth. She sure drives smooth. I mean, it's got a nice low idle. I did just have it running. Like, listen to it. Here, let me just put the mic up closer. It's absolutely great. I mean, it's a fantastic running motor, fantastic driving car. Stops well. Could probably use some drums, but that's okay. I mean, you don't really notice anything. But listen to this exhaust. That is pretty cool. I really, really like how it sounds for a for this kind of stock system. Now, they're true duals. All you have is a manifold and a muffler on either side. So I'll actually put a clip of this thing revving up a bit right now. So yeah, I mean, you can see it sounds fantastic. Now, taking a look down here, there's a tiny bit of an exhaust leak. And you probably can't see that they're true duals, but I figured I'd give it a shot. I really love this car. I really do. It's a fantastic car. You don't see them around nearly enough, and that is too bad. You know, I mean, they're absolutely fantastic. Like, look at this. Man, it just runs great, drives great. This is the car that I'm going to be driving now. You know, the problem is when I pull up to school in this thing, people are going to be thinking, oh, well, that's obviously, you know, he probably inherited that from his grandpa. And I've had a lot of people at my school call it a grandpa car, and that's fine. It is a grandpa car. It really is. And I kind of like that. Something about that is endearing. Now, I actually got this with a third brake light. That was obviously aftermarket because you can see I took it off because it was awful and falling apart. It was disintegrating, unfortunately. Looks like I've got a burnt out light, actually. Look at that. I've got two on that side and one on that side. Yeah, no, this is a beautiful car. It really is. It won't do burnouts until it's warmed up. Don't ask me how I know that. Unfortunately, this carburetor still has a bogging problem. If you go to mash on her, to like merge onto the highway when it's, you know, still too cold, you're not going to go anywhere because this is why. That was foot to the floor. It doesn't rev at all until it's warm. Speaking of warmth, I'm going to roll up this window and turn on the heat, which works. The AC, obviously, as I mentioned before, doesn't work in this car, which is kind of to be expected. I'm going to get that fixed, though. This radio I installed in place of the ashtray, because for those of you who don't know, I hate smoking with a passion. I can tell you, I'll never smoke, so why would I need an ashtray? So I pulled that out, and I put in a radio. I think that's a pretty fair trade. This comes right out. Nothing is permanent. Everything is reversible, and that's how I do all the modifications to my cars. It came with an analog AM receiver, which is unplugged, but it works. It comes with a nice digital clock. I kind of like the digital one, I must say. You've got your date and your time, and you can even go like this and start your driving time, which is kind of cool, I must say. I like that. It goes right into gear very well, and she moves. So there you go. That's the story of a big old land yacht from the 80s. So it's less big, but it still constitutes a land yacht in my book. Oh, I'll also show you the trunk just before I get off here. Now, you can pop the trunk two ways. One is you go in here to the glove department. That's an inside joke. Walk along here to the back and see the... I watched a video online. What was it? There was one cavernous trunk. Yeah, Grand Canyon of a trunk. That's what he called it, and it's true. Look how deep it goes. Cars from the 70s and 80s, most of the time, they had a flat trunk. The gas tank mounted right underneath of the trunk, and it was flat and went deep this way. Ford, on the other hand, thought outside the box. They thought, hey, let's make the gas tank an absorption device. So if you get rear-ended, you can explode and die, and then you won't sue us. But, I mean, you can see this gas tank here has, you know, it's obviously mounted behind that giant L. And this, you know, there's a shelf up there for your spare tire, which isn't there. And then you've got space for about 17, maybe 20, 30, 50... 70, 90, 6,714 suitcases, and all of the bodies to accompany them. Now, yeah, your gas mileage might be hindered a little bit by that. You know, this thing isn't really all that bad on gas, I must say. Like, you know, especially for a V8 like this. But high beams and everything, you know, everything works in this car. And the horn is on the turn signal stock, which is strange. Oh, and we're out of wash fluid, as you can see. Anyway, let's go ahead and shut her down. I'll give it a couple revs, actually, so you can kind of hear it. She doesn't rev well, not until she's warm. But I'm going to go ahead and shut her down, and whoa, there we go. And I think that's going to conclude the video, quite frankly. This is a fantastic car. No airbags, no shoulder belts in the back, no crumple zone, body on frame. That's exactly my style. Now, I must say, I wouldn't say this is the perfect first car. It really isn't, because people who get their first cars ruin them. And they stand on the hoods, and they cut exhausts off, and they ruin them. They put stupid wheels on them. So no, if you're thinking about getting this as your first car, don't. Save it for me, I'll buy it, and yeah, and then it'll be saved. I can tell you, it would be restored, no matter what the condition, no matter how much of a shitbox it is. It will be restored, at least to a certain extent. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, it's not really my usual style. But if you did enjoy it, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike, but let me know in the comment section below how I can improve. Let me know what you want to see. If you want to see more LTD content, by all means let me know, because I would love to film more on this car. Not that there is much more to film. I have a video on the Monaco already about putting deck lid speakers in it, and I don't think you guys need to see that again. I would like some deck lid speakers in it. I have some from a 93 Crown Vic I'll put in this thing later, but I don't think you guys care. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Again, let me know what you want to see. I'm excited to hear what you thought of this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. There's one... Of course. Oh my god, now here we go with the damn planes. Come on, man. But I don't... Oh my god. Another helicopter. What the hell is going on?